Welcome to Rustler's Reminiscence, stories of hope, faith, and frontier courage. Let the journey unfold. There's a smell you never forget as a rancher, the scent of warm earth mixed with blood. That's how my morning started. Not coffee, not Cora's biscuits. Blood. Again. 3 more steers gone dot. It was barely light out when I found the corral. Gate twisted like a pretzel, and tracks gouged deep into the dirt. Not hoof prints, not wolf, not bear. Just long, dragging furrows like something huge had slithered through in the night. One of the posts had claw marks up the side, deep, wide, unnatural. I'd lost 5 head this month, now 8. And the worst part wasn't the loss. It was the silence. No howling. No barking from Thunder, our old blue healer, who usually loses his mind over a rabbit. Just stillness and that coppery smell soaked into the air like a warning. I stood there for a long while, the rising sun cutting through the fog that hung over the back pasture. Every instinct in me screamed something was wrong. This wasn't rustlers. It wasn't a mountain lion. It was something that moved with intent. Something that could open a latched gate, pick the biggest steers, and vanish without a trace. The tracks led south, right toward the tree line, and past it, the SWAMPLANDS. Now, nobody in their right mind went into Mallister Swamp. Not at night. Not alone. It wasn't just the snakes or gators or the fact that the whole place smelled like rot and death. It was the stories. Things folks didn't talk about unless there was whiskey involved. Murmurs of something old that lived in there, something too smart for an animal, too wild for a man. I'd always figured that was just frontier ghost tales. Until now, Cora came out to the porch as I approached the house. She was still in her robe, her long braid hanging over one shoulder, and she had that look, the one that meant she already knew. I shook my head before she could ask. She pulled, the robe tighter, her face pale. That evening I sat on the edge of the porch, sharpening my old hunting knife. Thunder lay beside me, ears twitching every few seconds. The cattle were nervous, crowding close to the barnyard, even with the fence. Repaired dot, I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Something had violated my land, my herd, my home, and I wasn't the kind of man to sit by and let it happen again. I wasn't young anymore, but I'd hunted coyotes, bears, even put down a bull once that went mad in the branding pen. This felt different. It felt personal, like I was being watched, studied. That night I sat on the roof of the barn with my rifle across my lap, lantern off, every muscle tight. I listened, watched, waited dot nothing came, but the fear didn't leave. It sat in my chest like a cold stone. I'd seen enough tracks to know whatever was coming for my steers wasn't just a hungry animal dot, it was choosing dot, planning dot, and worst of all, it wasn't done. Levi Mallister showed up just after sunrise, his old buckboard creaking down the lane like it had arthritis. He didn't even tie off his mare before stepping down, just left her snorting by the trough like he was in a hurry to say something. Before he changed his mind, I met him halfway down the fence line, wiping the sweat off my brow with a rag. He didn't shake my hand, just looked me square in the eye and said, "It's the swamp, Boone. You need to get those cattle out of here." I blinked. "You know something?" "I know enough," he said, jaw tight. "Heard some of the same noises a few nights ago. Lost. A mule last week. Gate was latched. Same damn claw marks." I didn't answer right away. I just looked out across the pasture at the remaining herd. Maybe 40 steers still walking, all of them jumpy as fleas on hot iron. I ain't moving. "Them," I said finally. "Not unless I know what we're dealing with." Levi gave a bitter laugh. "You want to know?" You want to meet it up close? That what you're saying? I shrugged. I want to kill it. His face twisted, like he was about to spit. This thing ain't killing for hunger, Boone. It's killing to hunt. Left one of my mule's legs behind, clean bite, no mess. That ain't normal. I didn't respond, because deep down I already knew he was right. Levi looked toward the south, where the land dipped and the trees turned black against the horizon. That swamp, it's older than this town, older than all of us. My granddad used to talk about something out there. Big as a wagon, smart, fast. Said folks used to hear it in the water at night, breathin'. I hated ghost stories. I hated being afraid. But I didn't hate Levi. He was a hard man, but not a liar. So when he said, "You need to think about your wife," that hit me harder than I expected. Cora's scared already, I admitted. She should be. We stood there a long moment. Two old ranchers, shoulders sagging, under the same invisible weight. He clapped my arm once. "If you change your mind, come find me. I've got a place in Dry Creek. Some room for your herd? Just say the word." Then he climbed back onto his wagon and rattled off, leaving me alone with the dry wind and the scent of nervous cattle. That evening, Cora brought me stew in a tin plate and sat beside me on the porch swing. I could feel her eyes on me as I chewed. "You gonna go looking for it?" she asked finally. "I might." She reached for my hand, held it tight. "Please don't." But I couldn't promise her that. I couldn't even lie Dot it wasn't just stubbornness. It was instinct. Like something had stepped onto my land and challenged me. And if I didn't answer, I'd lose more than cattle. "I need to know what it is," I said softly. "And I need to stop it, before it takes more." She said nothing, just leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there together while the stars came out, listening for sounds that never came, and waiting for something we couldn't name to show itself. Cora didn't speak to me the next morning, Dot. She moved quiet through the house, her steps soft but sharp, like she was holding back everything she wanted to scream. I didn't blame her. I'd barely slept. Every sound outside the window set my heart racing, but nothing came. I was hauling hay from the barn when I heard the sound of a truck engine growling up the road, unusual out here where wagons still outnumbered pickups. I wiped my hands on my jeans and stepped out, squinting into the dust cloud. Dot Livy again, but this time he wasn't alone. A tall, dark-skinned man climbed out of the passenger side, lean as a rail but carried himself like a panther. His eyes scanned the tree line before they even looked at me. When they finally did, I felt Dot noticed. "This is Samuel Reeves," Levi said. "Tracker." Samuel didn't offer his hand, just nodded. "You got 3 cattle gone last night?" "3 total," I said. "All taken clean. Dragged out through a broken gate. No sound, no trail beyond the swamp line." He nodded. "It's not just you." "What do you mean?" Levi stepped forward, jaw tight. "Folks up near Red Hollow lost 4 head last week. Another ranch near Bitter Creek lost 6 overnight, no noise, same clawed-up posts." Samuel pulled a notebook from his coat and opened it. Inside were drawings, rough sketches of tracks, patterns, bite marks, all too similar, too big. "You're the furthest south," he said. "Means whatever this is, it's spreading. And it's not shy." Cora came out onto the porch just then, apron still on, arms crossed tight over her chest. She didn't say a word, but I saw the worry in her face deepen the moment her eyes landed on Samuel. "We gonna stop it?" I asked. Samuel's face was unreadable. "We can try. But this ain't a job for rifles alone." "Then what do? We find its territory. Then we figure out if it's got a den. Something this size, it's feeding regular. It's not traveling far. And if it's killing clean, that means it's not desperate. It's comfortable. The way he said it gave me chills. Like this thing wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Cora broke her silence. You're not going in there, Boone. You? Hear me? You're not. I have to, I said, before I even thought it through. She stepped down from the porch, eyes wet. No, you want to. That's pride, not sense. This isn't a varmint in the chicken coop. This thing's killing without fear, without pattern. She's right, Samuel said quietly. But so are you. Sooner or later, it'll come too close. Someone'll get killed. Might already be happening. That shut us both up. We spent the afternoon near the swamp's edge, looking for tracks. Samuel moved like a ghost, crouching low, brushing dirt and moss aside with hands that seemed born for the work. At one point he stopped dead. Here, he muttered. Claw drag, 4 parallel grooves. Same spacing as the ones on your gate. Levi and I looked closer. The marks were long, nearly the length of my forearm. God help me, they looked fresh. Whatever it is, Samuel said, standing slowly, it's marking this land like it owns it. Cora cried that night, and I hated myself for what I was thinking, even as I held her. This wasn't about fear anymore, It was about territory, mine versus his, and only one of us was leaving this ranch alive. Samuel told me about a ranch outside Coldwater. Said they tried to fight it. 4 men, all armed, all experienced, went into the edge of the swamp after losing 2 calves in broad daylight. Only 2 came back. I listened to his story and then, my hands frozen on a coil of rope, heart pounding harder with every word. He spoke calm, like he'd told it 100 times already. They followed the trail, Samuel said. Tracks were wide, drag marks deep. They found what they thought was a feeding ground. Bones, piles of them. Big ones, steer ribs, horse skulls, even what looked like bear remains. All stripped clean. I swallowed hard. They waited till nightfall, he went on, thinking they'd catch it when it returned. But it wasn't coming back. It was circling, watching. Levi stood in the shadows behind him, arms crossed, jaw tight. It came from the water, Samuel said, voice low, fast, silent. Took 1 man before the others even turned their heads. Second guy got off a few shots, but said they didn't do a thing. What was it? I asked. Samuel finally looked at me. They said it was like a python, but too long, too thick, bigger than any snake I've seen, and I've seen some monsters down south. I shook my head. No snake moves like that. This one did, he replied. Smart, too. It didn't attack head-on again. It spooked their horses, sent them running, broke their line. That's how it picked them off. Cora stood in the barn doorway, pale as bone. She'd been listening the whole time. I could see her breathing hard, clutching the frame like she needed something solid to hold on to. It's learning, I said. Adapting. Samuel nodded. It's hunting like a man, not an animal. Knows traps. Uses bait. And if it's this comfortable out in the open, that means it's settled. What do we do? Levi asked. Samuel looked at me. You've got land. That means you've got options. But if you stay put, you need to act like prey that knows it's being hunted. That didn't sit right with me. I stood, fists clenched. No, I'm not prey. Not on my land. Cora stepped in then, voice shaking. Boone. What are you even saying? You think you're going to track it down? Kill it? That's exactly what I'm saying, I said. I've fought bulls in a branding pen, shot a rabid wolf 6 feet from the porch. I've lived out here my whole life. I know these lands." Samuel didn't blink. "This isn't a bull, Boone. It's a thinking predator. It knows fear. But it also knows when something's worth killing. And I know how to make something bleed," I said, too angry to be rational. "This thing thinks I'm just meat on a fence post? Fine, let it try again." Later that night I went down to the pasture and sat on the old stump by the watering trough. The stars above were bright, but the darkness in front of the swamp felt heavier. Almost a live. Thunder growled low beside me. I laid a hand on his back. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about stopping something worse from spreading. And for the first time I realized this might end with me buried on my own land, bones left behind like all the others. But if that was my end, I'd make damn sure I took it with me. It happened 3 nights later, just past midnight. Cora had begged me not to stay out again. She was already half-packed, saying we could leave for her sisters in Wichita Falls just for a while. But I couldn't. Not after what Samuel said. Not after what I'd seen in those tracks and heard in the silence. That thing wasn't just passing through. It was here. I sat by the north fence with Thunder beside me, my rifle across my lap. The herd had pressed themselves unnaturally. Close together that night, huddled against the barn like they sensed what was coming. Even the horses were spooked. Every snort and clop echoed too loud in the stillness. Then we heard it. Branches snapping low to the ground. A heavy drag through the brush. Not fast, deliberate, confident. Thunder stiffened, ears pointed south. I chambered around and stood slow, rifle barrel pointed toward the tree line. Moonlight spilled across the clearing, and out of the shadows came a shape I'll never forget. At first I thought it was a log. Long, thick, moving impossibly smooth across the dirt. Then the head lifted, wide as a washtub, jaws yawning open in a slow, horrifying arc. It didn't strike. It looked. Scaled skin shimmered dark green and black, and its body went on and on, like it had no end. The python, not a snake like we know them. This one was a monster, at least 30 feet, maybe more, thick as a whiskey barrel in the middle. And it moved like it owned the world. It didn't come for me. It went for the herd. In a blur of movement, it lunged into the fence. Posts exploded. Steers bellowed and scattered as the creature latched onto one, a full-grown Hereford, weighing close to a ton, and coiled its body around it in seconds. I fired. Thunder barked, and lunged. My bullet hit square in the side of its neck. Nothing. Just a flick of its head, and it tightened its grip. The steer screamed, a wet, gurgling sound I didn't know cattle could make, and then bones started to pop. I fired again, aiming for the head. The python jerked, letting out a hissing grunt, but it didn't let go. It started dragging the carcass, slow and steady, right back toward the swamp. Cora screamed from the porch. I turned to see her clutching the shotgun, barefoot in her NIGHTGOW, and I yelled for her to stay back. But she didn't listen. I ran down the hill, pumping shot after shot into that monster, trying to slow it down. Blood sprayed from one of its wounds, dark and thick, but it didn't stop. It was pulling nearly a ton of dead weight across gravel and dirt like it was nothing. Then it turned, only for a second. But it turned its head back toward us. Its eyes, they watched. Not like a beast, like a rival. And then it slipped into the reeds, dragging the steer behind it. The grass folded, the water stilled, and the silence returned like a slap. Thunder stood at the edge, growling low, tail stiff. Cora reached me, chest heaving, eyes wide. "It didn't even care," she said. "It knew you were shooting it, and it didn't care." She was right. That thing wasn't afraid. It had no reason to be. I felt useless, like a child holding a slingshot against a damn train. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I told Levi we needed explosives. Levi didn't even blink when I said the word dynamite. He just nodded, turned back into his shed, and returned with an old wooden crate, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "This ain't military grade," he warned, "but it'll do the job if you get it close." I opened the box and stared at the battered sticks, wires coiled around like angry snakes. My hands trembled a little as I lifted one. I'd done blasting before, back when we cleared the western ridge for fence posts. But this was different. This was a last stand. Cora didn't speak much when I came home with the crate. She just sat at the kitchen table, clutching a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours earlier. Thunder paced near her feet, restless. "I want you to take the wagon and head into town," I said gently. She looked up. "When?" "Tonight." She stared at me like I'd said I was leaving her. "You think it'll come back that soon?" I nodded. "It's not done. Not until something stops it." She shook her head, eyes brimming. "I'm not leaving you here." I walked over and knelt in front of her, took her hands. "Cora, I can't fight it with you worrying me half to death. If something goes wrong, you think I won't worry in town? I'll die either way." That cut deep. But I couldn't waver. "If you stay," I said slowly, "you could get hurt. If I stay, well, that's my choice. But I won't risk you too." We held each other for a long time. No more arguments, just quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes when a woman realizes she can't change the man she loves. She left just before sundown. Thunder didn't want to go, but I made him ride with her, despite the growling and whining. Cora turned once at the edge of the road. I lifted my hand. She didn't wave back. Just watched me like she already knew this might be goodbye. That night, I set the trap. The dynamite was buried near the corral, the plunger rigged behind the old oak tree where I planned to sit. I scattered some fresh feed, even dragged an old cowhide across the fence to make it look like fresh kill. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. I just needed it close. I wore black. Took my old revolver, loaded heavy. Had a second stick of dynamite tucked into my coat, just in case the first didn't finish the job. By midnight, the air had that same thick stillness. No crickets, no wind. Just me, hidden behind the oak, hands slick with sweat. I thought about my father. Then, how he once told me a man's land was like his soul. You let something evil settle on it, and it'll rot everything from the roots up. I wasn't going to let that happen. If this thing wanted to own my land, it was going to have to die on it. First, the hours dragged. My eyes strained against the darkness. Every creak of wood, every rustle in the grass made my finger twitch, and then a low rustle near the fence. The sound of something heavy, slow, but sure. A shadow slipped from the reeds. The python had come back. This time I was ready. It moved slower this time, not out of caution, but confidence, like it knew there was no one left to stop it. 30 feet of muscle and death, gliding like a ghost through the grass, moonlight slicking off its back like oil. I stayed frozen. Behind the oak, fingers wrapped tight around the dynamite plunger, my breath shallow. Every instinct screamed to fire, to shout, to move, but I waited. The bait was working. The cowhide had caught its attention. It circled it once. Then again. Nostrils flaring, tongue flicking. It didn't rush. It was thinking. That's when I saw it. The head turned not toward the cowhide, but toward me. I didn't move. Its eyes locked on the tree line. It couldn't see me, not clearly, but it knew. Somehow it knew, and then it did something I'll Never forget that it didn't lunge for the bait, that it moved past it. Right toward me, that I panicked. Heart hammering so loud I thought it would give me away. The python slithered with a terrifying calm, hugging the fence, skimming the brush. It had watched me before. It had learned the setup. And now it was coming for the hunter. I stepped back from the plunger, slowly drawing the second stick of dynamite from inside my coat. If it got too close, if it reached the tree, a rustle behind me, that I spun, that it was there, that the python struck from the other side, doubling back behind the barn. The damned thing had flanked me. Its jaws snapped inches from my leg as I dove, landing. Hard in the dirt, that my rifle fired once. I don't remember pulling the trigger, and the shot went wide. I scrambled to my feet, holding the lit stick of dynamite like it was a lifeline. The creature lunged. That's when Thunder came out of nowhere. He'd come back. I didn't know how or when, but the old dog launched from the shadows, teeth sinking into the python's side, distracting it just enough for me to roll out of reach. Thunder, get back. But he didn't. He held on with every ounce of rage his old frame had left. The python thrashed, coils rising, smashing into the ground. Thunder yelped and was flung aside like a rag, but it was the second I needed. I yanked the match from my coat pocket, struck it fast against my belt buckle, and lit the fuse at one chance. The python reared back. I threw the stick, not at its body, but into its open mouth. Time froze. Then, boom, a blinding flash of fire and noise split the night. The ground shook. I was thrown backward, ears ringing, vision white. When I came to, the world was spinning. Smoke clung to the pasture. Like fog, pieces of timber, dirt, and blood rained down around me. I dragged myself up on one elbow. The python lay twisted in the dirt, half its head missing, body twitching in grotesque spasms. Thunder limped toward me. Panting, one ear torn, but alive, I pulled him close, choking back tears. Good boy. You. Stupid, loyal, perfect boy. From the edge of the road, headlights appeared. Cora. She'd never left. She ran to me, barefoot again, sobbing and pulling me into her arms. The monster was dead, but it had nearly taken everything to stop it. The sun came up over the ridge like it was ashamed of what the night had seen. Smoke still curled from the crater near the corral, a blackened pit of churned earth and splintered fence posts. What was left of the python lay coiled and broken across. The pasture, more meat than menace now, its scales torn, its mouth gaping open in a permanent scream. Cora wrapped my ribs in bandages while Thunder laid his head in my lap, eyes barely open. He was hurting, but he wagged his tail every time I looked at him. Stubborn mutt came back for me when I told him to leave. I should have known better. He always did what was right, even when it hurt. Folks from all over started showing up by noon. Ranchers from Dry Creek, Coldwater, Bitter Creek. Men with rifles and women with wide eyes. Some brought supplies. Others brought questions. I didn't say much, just pointed to the body. That was enough. Levi arrived last. He walked slow, hat in hand, staring at the carcass with haunted eyes. So it was real, he said softly. I nodded. And it was smart, too smart. Samuel never came back. I sent a letter, but no reply. Some men don't need to return to the scene once the job is done. I figured he already knew. The attacks stopped. No more missing steers. No more broken gates or clawed fence posts. The swamp went back to being just a swamp. Still ugly, still full of snakes, but no longer hiding a monster beneath its surface. We buried Thunder's bed beside the barn, under the tree where I'd made my stand. He made it another 3 months before his injuries caught up with him. On the day he passed, I sat beside him from sunrise to sundown. Didn't speak, just held his head and thanked him, Cora never said, "I told you so." She didn't need to, but she also never made me leave. I rebuilt the fence, patched the corral, even built a new bunkhouse out back for Levi's grandsons when they came to help with branding season. But I never bragged. When folks asked what really happened, I just said we had a predator on the land, one that didn't belong, and that sometimes the land tests a man to see if he'll defend it or give it up. That test nearly killed me, but it gave me something, too. A story I never wanted and scars that'll never fade, but also a deeper bond with this soil, this home, this place I carved with my own 2 hands. They started calling me the Swamp Killer, said I was a legend, said I saved the whole damn county, but I don't feel like a legend. I feel lucky. I had a wife who came back. Lucky I had a dog who wouldn't leave. Lucky the land gave me one more chance, Dot, and every morning when I step out onto that porch and look at the tree line, I nod just once to the silence because I know what it cost to earn it, and I know what I'd do again if that silence ever broke. Thanks for riding with us through another tale from the Old West. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. More adventures are waiting on the trail ahead. See you next time.